And joining me, he is a writer and a public health researcher at Brown University. Please welcome Abdullah Shihipar.
Oh.
Abdullah, how
Hey,
you
how are you
doing?
doing? I'm good. How are you?
We're chilling. It's like whatever. I wanted to bring you into this
Yes.
discussion because I think that Julie raises a good point about sort of the hard place that Biden's own party has put him in, to say nothing of the far right. But you have been writing about public health. You're a public health researcher. We need your expertise and brains, and especially when this week, a story that we didn't talk about, but SCOTUS blocking any kind of testing or vaccine mandates for workers, affecting like 84 million American workers, saying OSHA has no jurisdiction, that this is not an occupational hazard. Utterly ridiculous. You got Neil Gorsuch, who doesn't even wear a fucking mask. Two of the lawyers who argued this case, before I kick it to you, Abdullah, remind everyone they had COVID. They were arguing that it's not an occupational hazard, and yet they were home with COVID themselves. I mean, this is the bonkers house of mirrors we live in. But what's your reaction to just that? This SCOTUS's action this week.
So obviously it's disappointing. The obviously the vaccine and testing mandate was important. But while I am disappointed, I'm not despairing at all because, well, I mean, it is disappointing and it is despairing. However, there is what the Supreme Court did not close the door to, and there was a good op-ed in the New York Times by David Michaels and Jordan Brar, who headed OSHA in the Obama administration. And in the Supreme Court's own the majority opinion, what they said was that you could issue a risk-based standard for cramped and crowded environments where COVID would be an occupational risk. And so what we have demanded, the vaccine and testing mandate has kind of been the bar, basically the floor, right?
Mhm.
What we have wanted is have wanted an emergency temporary standard that would cover all workers, and crowded and cramped environments is most workers. That would cover all workers and address things that, like ventilation, address things like how many people can be in the building, address things like, how do masking, etc. How do you reduce how do you make these physical environments safer for workers? Because the vaccine and testing mandate is good, but ultimately it does put the emphasis more on the employee than it
Right.
does to comply with these mandates than it does the employer. That's not to say that they're not necessary, but
Mm.
it's to say that there is a way forward, and I would like to see the Biden administration come back and revise, put out a new emergency temporary standard that covers all workers, that addresses these more holistic parts that are just beyond just like vaccines and testing.
Emergency temporary standards that they would have to comply by given the pandemic.
Yes, and I should add that, the emergency temporary standard for healthcare workers that expired. That was in place and that expired, and so that is no longer in place for even healthcare workers who, have this occupational risk of being surrounded by the virus all day.
And the Supreme Court did say that was okay. It was okay to
Mhm.
vaccine and test, or vaccine mandate and test healthcare workers. It was the one thing that we can thank, Keg Stan Kavanaugh for, I guess. What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room. Do it.